Hi guys, before we get started, I want to let you guys know we got the highly anticipated sweatshirts and t-shirts for the Butterfly Effect ready to go. It's linked down below to the Horner Cycling Foundation webpage. I'll post that up so you guys can stay warm with a sweatshirt or stay looking good with a Butterfly Effect t-shirt. And remember, knuckleheads beware. Now on to today's video. Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner. This is stage 1 of the Giro d'Italia. The beginning of the Grand Tour season starts today here in Italy. Now, today's race at 19.6 kilometers, just under 12 miles in length, doesn't look that complicated, right? Small bike trail there along the coast of Italy. Then with 2 kilometers to go, they'll make a left and they'll finish going uphill to the finish of today's stage 1 Giro d'Italia. The big-time favorites for the general classification have to be Primož Roglič and Soudal Quickstep's Remco Evenepoel. These two guys have already done battle at the Volta a Catalunya 6 weeks ago, and it was Primož Roglič that came out triumphant there in the victory over Remco Evenepoel 6 weeks ago. So Jumbo-Visma, 6 weeks ago, they thought everything's all wrapped up here at the Giro d'Italia, right? Primož Roglič is not even 100% on form, and we got 6 weeks still to go before the Giro d'Italia. Then all of a sudden, a month out is when Jumbo-Visma start having problems. They have Wilco Kelderman, who can't find form for the Giro d'Italia, so they bring in Sepp Kuss, the American. No problem, right? Sepp Kuss is a talented climber, and he can certainly make up what you're lacking from Wilco Kelderman with his climbing legs. But the obstacles just keep rolling in for Jumbo-Visma. Started just a week, 10 days before the Giro d'Italia started, once with COVID hit the squad hard. We saw it was Tobias Foss and Robert Hessing that drop out of the Giro d'Italia team just a week before the race starts, and then they get replaced by Rowan Dennis, the Australian time trial specialist. And if you remember right, in 2020, he helped deliver Theo Gegenhardt to that victory during those COVID years. So that's no problem, right? Well, the problem is for Rowan Dennis is he was sick at Tour of Romandy just before here at the Giro d'Italia, so we don't know exactly where his form is, and he won't know exactly where his form is either if he was missed a bunch of training before the Giro d'Italia got added to his schedule of this year's races. Next rider there, along with Rowan Dennis, Sam Oomen. Sam Oomen's quality climber. He can do some damage, but how much time has Sam Oomen taken off the bike, and how good will he be here at Giro d'Italia when we start getting into the mountains? Those are all big-time questions for those two riders. But then there's a third rider that has another question mark because Jan Tratnik crashed just days before the Giro d'Italia, and they replaced the Slovenian with the British rider Thomas Gloag. With Gloag coming in, he wasn't even expected to do a Grand Tour this year, he said in his interview during the individual time trial of stage 1, but he's happy to be here. That's 4 riders, though, for Jumbo-Visma, and you only come in with a squad of 8. So 50% of their squad have been changed with a month to go and then just days to start here at the Giro d'Italia. It's going to be some problems. You got to imagine that the management for Jumbo-Visma are just thinking, man, let's just get to this individual time trial and start the race. Then everything will calm down. We'll relax a little bit. We'll bring everything down. You know, Primož Roglič is on great form. He's coming from altitude training camp. No problem. He's going to be able to run in today's individual time trial against Remco Evenepoel, right? Well, let's get into the racing, because the top rider that's in the hot seat when racing really comes on proper is going to be Mads Pedersen from Trek Segafredo. Mads Pedersen flew across the line 12 seconds up on the best time previous, and so that'll put him in the hot seat. But the Trek Segafredo rider doesn't have to sit there too long, because Brandon McNulty's out on the course. First, he's catching Bahrain Victorious, then he's catching Movistar riders that left before him as the UAE Team Emirates rider is flying. He'll come up to the finish, throw his bike at the line, and he's up 14 seconds on Mads Pedersen time. That's putting UAE Team Emirates in the hot seat. Now, as we look back, leaving the ramp is going to be Theo Gegenhardt from Team Ineos, But then the cameras all of a sudden shoot forward because Jay Vine, UAE Team Emirates, is blazing the course. He's setting fastest times out there in the splits of about 8 seconds faster than anyone before him. The UAE Team Emirates rider hits the final climb with 2K to go. He's still got a few seconds up on Brandon McNulty, and then when he crosses the line, he beats Brandon McNulty's time by 2 seconds to put UAE Team Emirates in first and second place. Only problem for these two riders, Theo Gegenhardt is out on the course. He's flying all the way up the climb here, comes into the final lefts and right turns to the finish line of today's stage 1 and puts himself into the hot seat 6 seconds faster than Jay Vine's time to dislodge two UAE Team Emirates that were sitting first and second. Now Team Ineos is looking fantastic, right? Because out on the course, there we see it's Geraint Thomas. Geraint Thomas, the 2018 Tour de France winner, is flying. He's on equal time with everybody through the time checks. Only problem he's having, though, is he's got 2 kilometers to go, and it's the climb that's left in front of him. The Ineos rider starts falling apart once he gets on the last 2 kilometers of today's individual course, and he loses 26 seconds as he crosses the line. Now behind, it's Almeida, UAE Team Emirates. This is their pure leader here that normally should have been the sole leader here at UAE Team Emirates, but Jay Vine's formed a little bit questioned because he's had some incidents in the past, so he hasn't been racing much with knee injuries. And now when he started the Giro d'Italia and put himself in the hot seat until Theo Gegenhardt dislodged him, it's leaving some doubt about whether or not if João Almeida, UAE Team Emirates, is their number 1 leader for UAE. Well, we're going to see once he crosses the line because the Portuguese rider is flying. He comes across today's finish 11 seconds faster than Theo Gegenhardt to put UAE Team Emirates in first, third, and fourth on the stage right at this moment. But we got the big time hitter still to come because Remco Evenepoel's leaving the ramp. He's flying, sprinting as he's leaving the ramp. We'll see him do 200-300 meters out of the saddle before he drops into the bar horns and gets into the aerodynamic position that Remco Evenepoel is so well known for. The Belgian rider is flying right away from kilometer 0 here at stage 1 of the Giro d'Italia. Leaving just behind him is his nemesis from Catalonia. It's Primož Roglič from Jumbo-Visma, just leaving behind the Belgian rider. Primož Roglič immediately gets into the aero bars and starts his TT race here on stage 1 of the Giro d'Italia. Then when we look next to leave the ramp, it's Stefan Kuhn, FDJ. He is the European time trial champion from years past. But behind him, we got a world time trial champion, Filippo Ganna, that's still got to leave the ramp. These are the big time favorites here, all 4 leaving right after each other. Remco Evenepoel, though, is putting on a magical display on the pedals. When he comes through the first time check, he's up 20 seconds on the best time of the previous riders before him. The Belgian rider's flying. Now, what does Primož Roglič have? Well, when Primož Roglič crosses the first time check, he's 26 seconds back on the Belgian rider, and then Stefan Kuhn across the line, 22 seconds back on the Belgian rider. Now, there's still some drama, though, because there's Filippo Ganna out there, right? He's a 2-time world time trial champion. He's flying too, and he'll cross the first time check, though, 12 seconds back on Remco Evenepoel. Up front, Remco Evenepoel is putting on a display. He's flying through the zigzags. He's got the motorcycle camera right behind him. When he comes out of the final left zigzag corner as it drops down the little descent, you see it's his rider right in front of him that left the ramp. As he's catching the rider directly in front of him, the camera guys are losing gap there on the Belgian rider because they can't hold the speed of Remco Evenepoel. Now, Remco Evenepoel will go through the left turn as he starts the final climb here on stage 1. He's out of the saddle, sprinting like crazy. They get just slightly up the climb as he goes into the hard right turn. He's flying. Look at the kid. The girl running on the side. She's going full gas, and Remco Evenepoel's flying through this corner so fast that she has to hit the brakes and lock it up because Remco Evenepoel's going inside to outside, full gas, using every bit of the turn here while going uphill. Now we know he's putting on a flying time, but what's happening behind? Primoz Roglic goes through the left turn to start this final climb here on stage 1. He's 42 seconds back on Remco Evenepoel. Now we know the Slovenian's having all kinds of problems here on stage 1. Clearly he doesn't have his legs opened up 100% before today's individual time trial started, but we got other riders behind because Stefan Kuhn is still out there flying on the pedals. Filippo Ganna's still back there, but Remco Evenepoel, he is flying full gas. See him using every bit of the road as he's coming through all the corners into the final of today's stage 1 to fly across the finish line today 29 seconds faster than the time of Almeida from UAE Team Emirates. Now that'll knock Almeida, the GC favorite here for UAE Team Emirates, back into second place. But what's happening further down the road? Well, Primoz Roglic is doing everything he can as damage control coming into the finish, but he'll lose 43 seconds at the end of today's stage 1 individual time trial. Stefan Kuhn's not going to do much better. He'll go a split second faster than Primoz Roglic, but he'll still lose 43 seconds to Remco Evenepoel. Now we got Filippo Ganna, the ex-world time trial champion, that still has a shot at today's victory here in the individual time trial, but not much of one, because once he crosses the line, he's 22 seconds back of Remco Evenepoel. Now there was a few more riders that followed these 4 big-time hitters, but once they crossed the line, they were losing minutes back there. So we know Remco Evenepoel will wear the pink leader's jersey at the end of stage 1. What about Jumbo-Visma? Well, Primoz Roglic, 6th on today's race at 43 seconds back on Remco Evenepoel. Primoz Roglic has some damage to do. It seems like when we're talking about Jumbo-Visma, that what started a month ago with Sepp Kuss being added to the squad has just multiplied every day coming into today's stage 1, and it got worse at the end of today's stage. Being 43 seconds back for Primoz Roglic is a big problem. Reminds me back when we look at the Tour de France in 2020 when it was Tadej Pogačar that won on Planche de Belfi, the individual time trial. At the finish of today's stage, that's the only thing that kept passing through my mind was how Primoz Roglic lost on Planche de Belfi in the individual time trial. And then today I'm thinking, wow, it looks a lot like that with Primoz Roglic losing against Remco Evenepoel today. But there's a big time difference, right? The last individual time trial was the penultimate day of the 2020 Tour de France, so there was no time for Primoz Roglic to fix it. Now, if you're going to have a bad day during a 3-week race, 43 seconds to Remco Evenepoel is not going to be as devastating as what it was at that 2020 Tour de France on Planche de Belfi, because he still has 3 weeks to be able to make up that time, right? So Primoz Roglic and Jumbo-Visma, who have had drama starting the month out of this Giro d'Italia all the way into this stage 1, still continues. When we start looking at all of his domestiques riding for Primoz Roglic, Edoardo Fini, their sprinter, was the next best rider here in the individual time trial, and he still lost 1 minute and 30. Rowan Dennis lost almost 2 minutes. Sepp Kuss, same scenario where he just gave up a bunch of time today. So when we're talking about Remco Evenepoel, he doesn't have to worry now that much about Jumbo-Visma, with the exception of Primoz Roglic, of course. But 43 seconds is a big time lead on Jumbo-Visma if you can take it this early in the Giro d'Italia. And remember, there's 2 more individual time trials still to come for Remco Evenepoel to put some more damage into Primoz Roglic. Now, I'll tell you guys honestly, I didn't see this coming. This was exactly like Tadej Pogačar, where none of us saw it coming at that year's 2020 Tour de France, and nobody saw this coming here on stage 1, that Remco Evenepoel could be this dominant this early into a Grand Tour. And Primoz Roglic has to hope that today's race was that day without missing the legs, where it was just catastrophic. It's the first day back. He hasn't raced since Volta a Catalunya, so hopefully his legs just weren't opened up. He said in the interview afterwards, though, that his legs felt good, and he still has 3 more weeks to make up some time on Remco Evenepoel, so he's not worried. But 43 seconds is a ton of time at the end of stage 1. And if Remco Evenepoel continues to be on this type of form, you can only hope that every GC team here at the Giro d'Italia are going to battle and force Soudal Quickstep to do all the work. Only problem with that for Soudal Quickstep, tomorrow's the sprinter stage, so they're not going to have to ride tomorrow, right? It's going to be the sprinter teams. Most likely on stage 3, it'll be a team like Trek Segafredo that's going to ride there for Pseudo Quick-Step. So stage 2, stage 3, they won't have to ride. On the interview from Remco Evenepoel after today's individual time trial, he said they'd be willing to give up the race leader's pink jersey on stage 4. So you know stage 4 is going to be action-packed. They might not have to ride that hard on stage 4, and they might just give up the pink race leader's jersey here at the Giro d'Italia on stage 4. So we know it's going to be an interesting Giro d'Italia, and stage 4 is going to be attacks left and right. But stage 2 and 3, Pseudo Quick-Step are going to sit back and go, I don't have to do anything on these next 2 races. We're just going to take it easy on these next 2 stages, and the only real work I'm going to have to do is the podium ceremonies afterwards if we want to keep the race leader's pink jersey. But why not? Because the next 2 stages should be easy, and then we'll give it up on stage 4. Now, Jumbo-Visma, they have to hope that this last month has just finally finished at the end of today's individual time trial, and they can get everybody flowing. Rowan Dennis, who was sick before Tour of Romandy started, his form might just keep getting better and better. And of course, the American Sepp Kuss, who is a pure climber, his form could get better as we get further into this climbing stages here at the Giro d'Italia once we get into stage 4 and then proper later into the weeks. But Jumbo-Visma do not look like they have this dominant team like we saw at last year's Tour de France in 2022, where Wout van Aert could just control everything and set any pace they want and try to blow things up. So Primož Roglič has all kinds of problems on his hands. Other teams that won at the end of today's race, though, have to be UAE Team Emirates. 3 riders in the top 10, Joao Almeida, Jay Vine, and Brandon McNulty, the American kid, looked fantastic today. And then Team Ineos, Theo Gegenhardt is on flying form to finish in the top 5 at the end here of today's stage 1. And on 10th on the stage will be G. Thomas, who I question his form a bit because normally you wouldn't lose time going up the last 2 kilometers here. He was solid along the flats, but then gave up a ton of time going up the last 2K and lost almost about 25 seconds in 2 kilometers. So I'm a little worried about Geraint Thomas's form starting the Giro d'Italia. But UAE Team Emirates look magical at the end of today's stage 1. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. The butterfly flag is going to be flying high here at the Giro d'Italia. We just got our t-shirts all done up and ready to go and got the website set up. I'll put a link down below to the Horner Cycling Foundation, and you guys can go there and find the Butterfly Effect t-shirts and sweatshirts if you're interested in any merchandise. Make sure you guys like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next edition of the Butterfly Effect real soon.